All right, class. Hopefully, we'll be at school tomorrow so we can finish this up. Um, Good discussion today on Kohlberg, and appreciate the emotion, and the civility, even though we may or may not agree. Lights went off. Even though we may or may not agree on things, we can still discuss them well and civilly. Hold on, let me go turn these lights back on. I think they're on some sort of timer, and they randomly kick off. So today we're going to talk about Erikson. He is a developmental psychologist from the psychodynamic perspective. Remember, that's kind of where Freud hung out. That's sort of his realm. So he gets a lot of things from Freud. Erikson's theory states that sorry, Kara texted me and come across. You all probably saw it. That we develop socially in stages. And he contends that each stage of life has its own psychosocial task, a crisis that needs resolution. If that is very Freudian, it's a very Freudian statement. He was all about crisis and tension and things like that. So this is he's going to use a lot of Freudian language. So this is essentially his school of thought, or his psychosocial stages of development. So there's a couple slides. We'll go through these. I'll go through them, and then we'll talk a little more about them as we kind of go through. But what he says is the first stage is infancy, and that happens during the first year. That stage is essentially trust versus mistrust. And we've talked a little bit about this. Do we trust... Oh, goodness, I just messed up. Do we trust things, or do we not trust things and people? Where did it go? Is that here? Yes. Sorry about that. I'm going to tell Kara that I'm making a video and to stop sending messages. Making a video, your stuff is coming across my screen. Okay, so hopefully she won't do that anymore. Trust versus mistrust. If the infant's needs are dependably met, infants develop a sense of basic trust. They're going to trust their parents. They're going to trust their caregivers. And we talked a little bit about that. So there you are. Stop. Second year is toddler. This is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Toddlers learn to exercise and will do things for themselves, or they will doubt their abilities. And if you've got a toddler, or brother or sister, you may have noticed this. They'll either try and do things on their own, or they won't try and do things on their own because they're afraid of that they can't do it. The third stage is preschooler stage, and that is characterized by initiative versus guilt. Preschoolers learn to initiate tasks and carry out plans, or they feel guilty about efforts to be independent. Fourth stage is the elementary stage, or elementary age. The stage is competence versus inferiority. Children learn the pleasure of applying themselves to tasks, or they feel inferior. So you're kind of starting to see how he sets these up, sort of either or, and they've got to basically go through that stage in order to get to the next one. Approximate age, adolescence from teens into the 20s. This is identity versus role confusion. Teenagers work at refining a sense of self by testing roles and then integrating them to form a single identity, or they become confused about who they are. These are the kids who, and you may know these, may find themselves in a different social group every year. Usually starting from about 7th grade on up till they graduate. One year they might be in the skater group, and another year they might be with the FFA group, and another year they might hang out with the athletic group, and then another year they may be with the band group, and then another year they may be with the academic team type kids. So, and I'm not saying those are all good or bad. I'm just saying a lot of these, you may know a lot of people who fall into that role confusion. Where do they fit? What social norms do they want to adhere to? And what, really they're looking at what their identity is. Next stage is the young adult stage. This is your 20s to early 40s, so this would be where maybe I fall into. Getting close to middle adult, but not quite there yet. This is intimacy versus isolation is the stage. And the description is young adults struggle to form close relationships and to gain the capacity for intimate love, or they will feel socially isolated. I don't know. I don't know if I buy that for me. I feel like I don't know, maybe not. I've got a lot of friends. I don't know how many close friends I have other than my wife. I do not feel socially isolated, I don't think. The next stage is the age group is middle adult, 40s to 60s. Generativity versus stagnation. In this, the middle-aged discover a sense of contributing to the world, usually through family and work, or they may feel a lack of purpose. I feel like this is probably a bit more where I fall in, because I put a lot of work into this course for you all. I hope you all see that, and I sort of see this as being one of the ways that I can contribute to the world is to get you all ready for college and to sort of hopefully help create some good habits for you all as you get into those of you who are the younger ones on into high school and then into college. Anyways, and then the last stage is the late adult. This is the late 60s and up. And then you're looking at integrity versus despair. When reflecting on his or her life, the older adult may feel a sense of satisfaction or failure. There you go. So those are Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. And each one has sort of some of these key questions. Go back to the infancy. Is my world predictable and supportive? Toddler, can I do things myself or must I always rely on others? Preschool initiative versus guilt. Am I good or am I bad? Competence versus inferiority. Elementary, am I competent or worthless? Adolescence, who am I? Where am I going? Young adult, shall I share my life with another or live alone? Middle adult, will I produce something of real value? Late adult, have I lived a full life? And generally, here's where those stages sort of stack up. I'd go ahead and pause this and maybe study this a little bit more. Each of Erikson's stages builds on the previous stage. So if you don't conquer the crisis in one, you can't proceed positively through the next. So you've got to, according to Erikson, you've got to understand and at least grapple with these crises in order for you can move on. Now you may have to choose. You may have to think, is my world predictable and supportive? If you don't think it is, that is an answer to that question. Mistrust. I don't think you have to trust in order to move on. You can do what we would call the negative side. You could, and Two, you could be full of shame and doubt versus autonomy. You could be full of guilt. Am I good or am I bad? You don't have to answer those positively to move on. They just have to be answered. And you have to be trusting, I guess, of that answer. That answer has to have weight to it. We've already talked about this. This is on the PowerPoint I posted. Again, autonomy versus shame and doubt. Learn to exercise will and do things for themselves, or they will doubt their own abilities. This is pretty much everything I just mentioned. I'll let you all just kind of take a look at these. I'm not going to read each one. I've already mentioned it. The next person we're going to talk about is Carol Gilligan. Anyways, adolescent social identity issues of adolescent stage. Again, identity versus role confusion. We're looking at who are we as a self. You all, that's where most of you, actually, that's where all of you all are at the moment. Erikson said some teens forge their identity really early, and many of them will base it on their parents. They will either have the exact same beliefs and values of their parents, or they'll flip that and have the opposite beliefs of their parents. And, we can talk about why that is or isn't. But it does happen. So early, a lot of times, a lot of adolescents early on, I'm going to do exactly opposite of what my mom and dad believe or want. That's an identity. And then also with adolescents, since this is kind of what the little section we're under, is social development, intimacy, struggling in young childhood, intimacy versus despair stage, the ability to form close, loving relationships. You must have a clear identity before you're ready for this. So, and that's why I always laugh at when you all were kids your all's age, just totally freak out when your boyfriend or girlfriend decides to... you all decide to break up. Truth be told, high school relationships generally are not destined to lead to marriage. They just generally don't happen. Go to college, have a much bigger pool, so to speak, to choose from. And I would always say this: be selfish in who you're picking, who you're going to pick. All right, have a criteria, know what you're willing to fudge on a little bit and what you're not, and just be selfish, because this is as much for you as it is the other person. And that's Coach Driver's relationship advice for the day. Take it or leave it. Carol Gilligan believed Erikson stuff applied more to males than to females. She said because males are more individualistic and females are more relationship oriented. Boys play in large groups, focuses on the activity and not intimate discussion, whereas little girls play in smaller groups, often with just one another. So boys focus on the activity, girls focus on the discussion and the social interaction between the two. Also, Carol Gilligan has a few more gender differences. Men are more likely to guess or make up answers than to admit that they don't know. This is called the male answer syndrome, and I have been guilty of this. My wife is generally very good at calling me on it. She'll say, "You just made that up." So anyways, Women generally emphasize caring, whereas men emphasize freedom and self-reliance. But what's interesting is that by age 50, most of these gender differences will disappear. So again, these are more with adolescent social development. And what you'll find is within, you all are 15, 13, 14, 15, 16. Within 35 years, the differences will disappear. And that leads us to adulthood, which we are not going to go over today. Hopefully we'll be able to go over tomorrow in class. And that only leaves us with like 10 slides, 14 slides. So anyways, hope you all have a good day. And that's not it. Sorry for the randomness of this video. It's, you know how it is. Anyways, hope you all have a good day. And if we're in school tomorrow, we will talk about adult. If we are not in school, then we will talk about, there'll be a video on adults. Have a good day. Peace out.